In 2005, two Wisconsin brothers founded a silencer research and development company called Hearing Protection LLC. After escaping Hillary Clinton's dangerously mismanaged State Department security program, these brothers went full tilt into standing up their own firearms company. Today, still under the watchful eye of government regulatory agencies, they survive as entrepreneurs of fortune. If you have a problem, if you have shitty kit, and you're in desperate need of an upgrade, maybe you can buy Griffin Armament.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for listening in to this episode of the Dwell Time Podcast. I'm Evan Green, the host. Austin is here with us, as well as a special guest, Dave Matheny, the owner of Silencer Shop. For those of you who don't know, which I'm sure there's not very many of them out there because Silencer Shop is so popular, but Silencer Shop is the most prominent distributor of silencers in the United States. We've been doing business. We've been fortunate enough to do business with Dave for going on about 14 years now, I think. And it's been a great relationship ever since. I remember making the phone call to you when we first started, and I knew about Silencer Shop, and I was like, we got to try to get Silencer Shop because, this is a big deal. And I called up Silencer Shop, and Dave was actually answering the phones at that time because it was in the early days. And we kind of had a nice phone call and started doing business. So I really appreciate that.
I still remember that call.
Yeah.
It was actually pretty awesome.
Yeah. So thank you very much.
Thank you guys
for your business, and we appreciate you having here. Dave just came out to visit and tour the new facility. We just finished building our new facility about a year ago. What'd you think of the tour?
Seriously, I think you guys have an awesome setup here. It is super impressive. Do you guys have anything online with pictures of this?
We do have a few, yeah.
Okay.
On our website.
Yeah, it's really, really impressive.
Yeah, so if people are visiting or want to visit, we have a pro shop that's really nice. We encourage the general public to come out and visit. We'd love to talk to you.
Now, I thought you said this was special. I was able to come do this. Is that everybody can come?
Well, everyone can come see the pro shop, but yeah, you did get the full walkthrough, facility walkthrough, and everything.
For reasons of security, we can't do that with everybody, unfortunately.
Right, we'd like to, but yeah, security.
ITARs and ATF compliance and all that.
Yeah, security makes it tough. But our pro shop is super nice, honestly. All the products are on display. We've got merchandise and everything like that. So if people are interested, hit our website or call our customer service line. They'll help you out with planning your visit. So yesterday we went to golf to relax a little bit. Dave was coming off a lot of travel. He travels a lot. And so we wanted to just relax a little bit. We went over to Lac La Belle in Oconomowoc, which is a really nice course, and just relaxed. And then we went to Lago Subella afterwards. My favorite restaurant in Oconomowoc, Wisconsin, if you're ever in Oconomowoc. Super nice restaurant. Owners are awesome. Waitstaff's great. Did you like the food and the golf?
Honestly, I thought it was great. It was a lot of fun. And like you said, I kind of just needed to wind down a little bit. It was great.
Yeah. Yeah, for those listening, don't always do business. Do a little bit of play and relaxation too, because it makes it more palatable. But yeah, so you guys are going through an expansion too right now. I've been kind of tracking it over the last year, actually several years, because it's been in process for a while. But you guys are pretty much finished now, almost.
Yeah, we're in our. In fact, we've been moved into our newest building, and we're building a new showroom in the North Austin area.
Nice.
And we have another 5 acres where we're building another warehouse. So it's the industry's going crazy, as you guys know. You're right in the middle of it.
Yeah. And so I heard you guys were doing a retail, like a standalone retail. That's the one that's going to be in downtown Austin, you said?
Yeah, it's a showroom. We don't sell retail, but people can come in and buy at that location and then pick up at local dealers.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Cool.
So it's but yeah, that'll be in it's north of Austin.
Okay.
But not very far, and it's going to be a really nice setup. We're hoping to have it open later this summer.
Oh, nice. So that's the facility that the general public can visit.
That's right, exactly.
Okay.
They also just built a new office, and that's a real pretty building, and
it is
much bigger facility that you guys are in now.
Yep, right in the Texas Hill Country. It's A really, really pretty location. And we have another 5 acres there where we're building another building.
Oh, okay.
So it's there's just a lot going on in this industry right now.
Yeah, it's actually amazing to see the growth, from the early days when everyone was on paper forms.
Yeah.
And it was just a constant headache and just a tragic
It really
waste
demonstrates,
of time.
it demonstrates the regulatory cost of our government.
Oh, 100%.
There is just so much opportunity loss to the amount of time it was taking, like a year and a half to transfer a silencer.
You think
Maybe 8 years ago, 4 to 8.
And it was just over a year ago that wait times dropped from, I believe it was at 9 months, and then almost overnight it dropped to 2 or 3 days. I mean, the industry is still absorbing that growth. We had a doubling last year in the industry. I suspect if it weren't for all the turmoil this year, we'd see another doubling this year. But it's just been crazy. The wait times are a big deal.
Right. That I used to go to a lot of demos. I still go to some. And that was predominantly the biggest complaint that you'd hear from consumers was, I really like it. This is cool. I'd like to own it, but I just don't want to wait this long.
Right.
Yeah. And so with the weights very low now, it's almost an insignificant factor in the purchase.
I agree.
And so that's increased purchasing through the roof, which is good. And it's allowing companies to really provide better services and products too, because we can develop ourselves faster than we could, back in the day when you had such long turnover times.
Right.
Yeah, whenever receivables are thin, it's difficult for industry to move forward.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because we aren't the government, we can't operate at a deficit. We have to be in a profitable zone. So
right.
Or we're closed.
Did you enjoy the planning and execution of the buildings?
I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a few hiccups along the way. My natural tendency is to try to avoid all permitting and processes, and that bit me right in the butt. Right. But honestly, it's turned out great. I think it looks great. I think the employees love working there. Mm-hmm. It's a better environment to come to work in than where we were before.
That's cool, and that's a big deal too, because if you want to really have it shows when you have a really a nicer place and you're willing to make those investments. It definitely, I think, is appreciated by everyone that's part of the organization. And
that was a major factor in this building, was you start to realize how much of your life you spend at work, and it'd be nice if that was a more enjoyable environment to be.
Right. Because some people spend more time at work than they spend at their own home. Mm-hmm. I mean, to be honest. So yeah, you guys are in Texas Hill Country, the corporate offices.
That's right.
And it's kind of like almost an acropolis, because it's like on top of a ridgeline. Almost.
Yeah, the view there is fantastic.
Yeah, it's amazing because it looks down into, is it Lake Travis?
We can't quite see Lake Travis, but it's in that area.
Okay.
I saw the building because I was just there doing some additive research, and it was kind of after hours, so the place wasn't open. But it was a very pretty building and a pretty site.
Good.
Uphill to the building, and nice green grass, and nice looking place.
Mm-hmm. So one of the topics that people are talking about and looking at these days is the current bill for suppressors. What do you want to spend a couple minutes just to give us your opinion on that, or any information that?
Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I really can't get too deep into it. And honestly, I think there's probably stuff that we probably don't have time to explain deep enough in this time. But there's the main thing people have to understand is that we are kind of up against a timeline where we have to get something like HPA passed, right? Getting silencers removed from the NFA, getting short barrel rifles removed from the NFA. If we don't do that, the next time the Democrats have full control, which they will again, as much as we don't want that to happen, the next time they have full control of the presidency, the House, and the Senate, they're going to use this exact same process to jack the tax stamp price up. And if you just adjust for inflation, the tax stamp price is going to be close to $5,000. And that's why we started really pushing for this, getting silencers out of the NFA.
Yeah, people have to understand that when the NFA passed, it was a sensational journalist time. And all they had to do was talk about Al Capone, gangsters, bootleggers, and the murder of a few people in a devastating fashion with Thompson machine guns in these street battles in Chicago. And and they could get a whole bunch of emotions moving and pass a bill that totally infringed on people's constitutional rights. And that doesn't mean that 5,000 was ever okay. That was a total constitutional infringement, very similar to other horrible abuses that have happened in the past, with human rights, like Dred Scott. And from time to time in our history of the nation, the legal system abuses people. We should never go back to. In fact, there shouldn't be taxes on firearms at all. The federal excise taxes on firearms are also an infringement. But you're not wrong in the fact that the enemies of freedom, the enemies of America, will do anything they can to advance their cause.
And they're attacking us through every
I just
channel
don't want to
possible.
legitimize $5,000 because that's
Hopefully
totally
it didn't come
ridiculous.
across like I was legitimizing it.
No. I'm just saying that adjust for inflation, unconstitutional thing.
That's right.
And you get horribly unconstitutional thing again.
But this reconciliation process is essentially built to raise and lower, government revenues, right? Mm-hmm. It bypasses the whole, filibuster system the Senate normally has. There are rules in place, the Byrd rule, which kind of controls what can go through this process. But for the Democrats to raise the tax stamp to any amount they want, I'm using $5,000 just as an example because that's adjusting for inflation. Mm. But they can raise the tax stamp to any amount they want for anything that's in NFA, right? It is a very, very scary position we're in as an industry. And that's why we started pushing for this back in December, January timeframe. And it's funny because I haven't crossed paths with GOA a whole lot in my time. I mean, mm-hmm. They're a lot more sensationalist than I am, right? But the paths that we have crossed with them on this HPA bill, I think I've got a lot more respect for them now than I had before, right? I'm still not a sensationalist person. That's just not I'm not going to go out with contact whoever. I try to keep stuff under the covers, if that makes sense. You want to just quietly move forward. But it's I think we're actually going to get something this time. The gun industry for the first time in 25 years, right? It's pretty exciting.
So
that's actually huge when you think about it. It's like so many millions of people join the NRA with the hope of the NRA doing something to protect their rights. And if you look back over the whole history of the NRA, if anything positive happened, it was probably one thing, because that seemed to be just a history of a long road of concessions.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not bashing the NRA. That's not my intention here.
I'm not either. I'm just saying that it's very significant to have an achievement in the positive direction. That's one of the sad things about America is the advancement of taxes, the advancement of inflation. We just are in a very I don't want to be sounding like a negative person, but it's a negative environment.
Yeah.
We rarely get anything back.
Right, in terms of rights, yeah.
Yeah.
So your general opinion is that there's going to be some benefit that comes out of this for the American consumer?
I think there's almost no world where we don't get something out of this.
Okay, so that's good.
Now, unless, let's say Musk and Trump continue their clash and sink the whole bill, But aside from that, I think we're going to get something.
Okay, that'd be cool.
And I think the net result of it is we are going to get silencers out of the NFA. Right, I think we are on that track. Hopefully short barrel rifles as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And then next, machine guns.
Yeah. Seriously, I wish that I could say you were right. Right. I just don't think that's there.
Right,
it's kind of funny. It's like the machine gun isn't the enemy. I have a whole collection of them, and
Should you be saying that publicly?
They're inanimate objects.
Well, it's like a race car. A race car isn't dangerous in and of itself.
Yeah.
Right.
It has to be driven, just like the machine gun has to be operated. And quite frankly, if you have a job and you are trying to take an organization somewhere, it's difficult to have the time to really do anything with that stuff. And that's what machine guns would look like. Ownership in America would be Americans get to feel a little free. They get to feel like their government trusts them a little bit more. And essentially, the machine guns are novelty items that barely get used. And what's the harm in that? Just like the silencer.
Right, exactly.
Sure.
So we've talked about your building. That was a 3-year project, was it? Something like that, almost.
3 years.
Which is pretty normal, I think, when you talk to people who are doing significant building projects like
If
that.
I could go back to the beginning of that project, I bet we could have got it done in a year and a half with the learnings we have from after it.
Sure.
But yeah, 3 years.
Yeah, and that's honestly not bad for something that's that large in scope, and there's so many different moving pieces, so many different contractors.
And we've had people operating out of that building for 2 years, so it's not.
Right.
But yeah.
That's the way that shakes out with regulations too. You have to get approval for all these things, and it
Yep.
takes such a significant amount of time to plan and get approvals and
That's right.
and then execute work.
Yep.
Right.
That's where what Trump is talking about. It's like this transformative change takes like 3 to 4 years to even begin. With the plans being made and all these investment opportunities that the country has come into recently.
So if there is benefit that comes out of this bill, which would really correlate to larger volume of sales, that's going to be pretty difficult for the market to also get behind. I mean, the industrial players.
Yeah, and I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, in a way of, if sales, I know like last year, like you were saying, when transfer times dropped to days instead of months, everyone was just zapped for inventory right away.
We're gonna have to say. I see what you're saying. We're
Right.
gonna have the exact same problem, and honestly, we're gonna have it worse. Last year, I mean, really, the word of the day last year was back order and out of stock.
Right.
Right, and we're gonna have that for a while.
Right. So really, you'd probably be better off if you're a consumer buying before the bill passes, because at least there's some inventory out there, versus after. If it was, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You're right. That is a hard argument to make, though. And I think logically, you can say, buy now, wait, buy now and get ahead of it, and you'd be right, because you'd have the inventory. But man, that $200 tax is a hard pill to swallow to get ahead of it.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So I think we're just going to see a pretty big slowdown during the implementation time. That's my suspicion.
Sure.
Right.
There's also that little concern for the people in certain areas that may be negatively affected by passage, and they could buy now too, and protect themselves from possible, issues waiting for their state governments to realign their ability to acquire items.
The thought I had, and I'm 100% sure that I'm in the minority of like one person. I thought, buy as much as I can right now, register them under the current NFA system, but do it on paper. And when you get an HPA and you pull the silencers out of the NFA, those stamps actually become collector's items. I mean, I actually think that people pay real money for these kinds of things, right?
Right.
I mean, do you think there'd be value in those stamps themselves?
Kind of like the old Harley Davidson stock notes that are in museums.
Yeah.
Definitely decades down the road when many of those stamps were just thrown away.
Yeah.
I mean,
They'll get
what
thrown
would you,
away,
what would
they'll
you
get
pay
lost.
for a Maxim silencer? What would you pay for original paraphernalia? It's like this stuff doesn't exist, but it was once on a pallet, probably, for pennies.
And I'm not encouraging people to submit forms on paper. The ATF would probably send somebody to my door and have me arrested.
That's funny.
Well, I mean, once it doesn't exist, the stamp is essentially just a historic.
Yeah, it becomes a collector's item,
Yeah,
right?
right.
I actually think for anybody who own those existing stamps, man, I say don't throw them away. Those are going to possibly be worth something. At the very minimum, it'll be something that's nostalgic.
That's one of the
right?
things I read in Wayne LaPierre's book when I was a kid. I was like in first grade or something reading the book, and which is a homeschool thing. But he was mentioning something about the 4473 having its roots in the pre-war Nazi Germany firearms registration.
I believe that.
Form, and I'd love to see one of those German forms today, and translated and see what it says and how much similarity there is. Just because it was an interesting statement to see in writing, and I've never been able to track down the actual document to like take a look at it and fact check that.
My entire opinion of the 4473 was built by that movie Red Dawn. Remember when they went in and got the 4473s?
Out of the gas station.
Yeah, to track down who had guns in the local area.
Yeah. That's pretty much.
Yeah, people don't realize it's like when gun owners are so villainized, it's like we kind of do have a Switzerland here where there's so much armament in the hands of civilians that this actually is part of our national defense. Nations like Japan in World War II, and you had, I believe it was Yamamoto who said there'd be a rifle behind every blade of grass because he'd studied here in university and was familiar with the culture. And in the same way, it's like today we have, it's like nations will always have a threat, and it helps to know that they don't just have to steamroll your 2 million strong military, they have to also subjugate the populace, and that's another perhaps 100,000 armed, or 100 million armed people.
Yeah.
That's the world's largest army.
Yeah, you saw our gun collection today, Dave, and one of the things that I like to tell people when they look at that, all those different guns, is if you look at the British guns and the Japanese guns, the quality is significant. It's obviously lower, and it's because those societies didn't have legal ownership of firearms, and so there wasn't a firearms culture that cultivated high quality, feature rich, robust firearms, and so as a result, those people, those nations actually were worse off in a wartime sense because there was just no one there that really knew a whole lot about guns.
Right.
You still see that today. Cansoft just picked up that crazy-looking cartridge silencer that is very loud and stuff like that. So, I mean, that's another country that doesn't have much of a firearms industry, and the gear they selected really unorthodox and strange.
Mm-hmm. So shifting gears, back to you, Dave. So what are some personal things you enjoy? I know that you enjoy hunting. That's one thing that you've done a lot of over the years.
I tell you, and I started Silencer Shop because I was going hunting with my son, right? He was born 100% deaf in his right ear. I've always enjoyed hunting. I hunted as a kid. I hunt as an adult. I love hunting with my kids. But that's probably my biggest hobby.
Okay. Any cool hunting stories recently or places you've been?
It seems like all my really great hunting stories, people wind up getting hurt, but in a funny way.
Okay.
Actually, earlier this year, though, and this is stupid, and hopefully it's not too long of a story, but I drive a diesel, right? Do you guys drive diesels? The diesel exhaust fluid?
I have in the past, but so I'm familiar with what you're saying.
And it's, my vehicle's got 170,000 miles on it. It's getting to the age where you start having problems with those systems. So I was driving back from the ranch. I was going to go hunting with my youngest daughter, who's now 24 years old, the next day, driving back from the ranch, and the computer on the car starts giving me an error saying, it was a countdown. It was like 250 miles, automatic shutdown, no restarts possible. And with my personality, I didn't care. I was like, whatever, no big deal, right? I do not stress stuff like that, right? I go home, kind of forgot about it. Next day I get up because I had to drive downtown Austin. This is right before the inauguration. It was beginning of January. So I was going downtown to pick up a tuxedo for the inauguration. And so it keeps counting down. And at this point, I'm getting down to a range where I do start to worry, right? And I'd thrown some def in because I thought, oh, that'll fix it, right? But it did not. So I pull in to a Range Rover dealership with like 5 miles left on the countdown.
Nice.
I was like, okay. And they look at it and they're like, okay, well, we'll just get you an Uber back to your house. But my car was completely loaded with guns. So they ended up pulling as a loaner car like a brand new Defender, which honestly, after driving it, is a pretty dang awesome vehicle, seriously. But I was like, okay, you guys know I'm taking this hunting. Oh, yeah, no problem, whatever.
It's a Land Rover. They shouldn't care.
Yeah, they shouldn't care.
It's in their history.
So I start pulling guns out of my car. Of course, they all have silencers on them. I've got a cooler. Then I grab my tuxedo. About this time, you've got all the guys coming out of the back shop. They're making James Bond jokes, John Wick. And it's I get everything. I take it out to the ranch, grab my daughter. We head out there. Well, you realize how much of your life is in your car, right? So like my side-by-side key. We ended up taking that Range Rover into the back of our property, which is super rough terrain. And once again, I was pretty impressed by the vehicle, just in general. She ends up shooting a really nice buck, honestly. For Central Texas, it was a really nice buck. But then we had no way to haul it out. We load that buck into the back of the
brand new
Range
Defender.
Rover.
The loaner.
Yeah, that's right. We get it up to the top of the property, and I realized, crap, I don't have the key to operate the winch that I would normally use to lift it up. So we rigged up with my Bobcat and got the deer cleaned. In Texas, you have to actually keep the head, right, until you get it to a processor. Well, I didn't have the bags that I would normally throw the head in, so I ended up just throwing this head just in the back of this brand new. There was so much blood in this vehicle. You would think that it had been a straight up murder scene. The pictures are hilarious, right? But you've got my daughter just sitting there like. I actually took a power washer into the vehicle before I returned it.
Nice.
Seriously, it was a lot of fun.
That's crazy.
But I have a lot of respect for those Defenders, let me just tell you.
What was the dealership okay with it?
You know, I actually did leave some on just to be funny.
Okay.
But I tried to get it cleaned up as well as I could before I returned it. There was probably some left on the seats and probably some left definitely on the back part of the car. But there was like an eighth of an inch across the entire base of the back. There was a lot of blood in that vehicle.
Wow. Impressive. All right. So how long ago was that hunt?
That was in January.
In January. Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. And then you
But
go
you
hunt.
said people get hurt, so who got hurt on that one?
Oh, not on that hunt, no.
Okay, all right.
You know, I've been on some crazy hunts, though, where it's nutty, but people have been hurt, right? It's
Like sprained ankles and stuff like that, or what?
you know, do you have time for another story?
Sure. Yeah.
I was on a bear hunt, and this is probably 3 years ago now in Maine. You guys haven't heard this story before? So we'd been chasing this bear for, I'm going to say 4 hours, right? It's with dogs, right? We got to the point where one of the other hunters, which is a guy who I'd never met before, some guy from Missouri, and they got on the bear, and the bear turned and attacked the dog. So the guide who is with this hunter actually pulls out his 10-millimeter pistol and just unloads it on the bear. And the bear, after attacking the dog, attacks the guide, bites him in the chest, bites him in the arm.
No kidding.
Yeah, pins him to the ground.
Holy crap.
He's holding the bear off like this, like that bear's trying to eat his face. It was really, really scary. I was probably 500 yards away. But there's the hunter that was with him, and this is where you realize, and I'm not saying this as a negative, I'm just saying it as a fact, right? A lot of hunters aren't necessarily gun people, right? They like to hunt, but they're just not gun people. The guy walked up point blank range, aimed through the scope instead of just putting the gun up there, so you've got that 3-inch differential, and ended up shooting the guide. So the guide,
Holy
while the bear
crap.
is on him, he gets his big toe
my
blown clean
gosh.
off. It was the nuttiest thing.
gosh. That
And
is
I
wild.
tell you, this guide is one of the toughest men I have ever met.
Ben's eyes are like pancakes right now.
He was-
Did he even hit the bear
Well, he did actually end up killing the bear, yes.
with the toe shot?
And I think the bear had been shot so many times already that it was just a
Holy
matter of
crap.
time.
That's wild.
No, he shot the guide in the toe.
Right, but I'm saying that the toe shot didn't hit anything
No,
but the
no.
guy.
That's
This was a
right.
black bear?
Okay.
Black bear.
Wow, they're usually not that aggressive.
It was a 420-pound
Well,
bull.
it's like
It
you
had been
gotta
chased
bit-
for 4 hours.
True, yeah.
You think about that story, you're like, the bear is like the size of, as thick as the door. How do you miss?
Yeah, well, you aim through the scope is how you miss.
Right.
So, yeah, that's just...
So he had to get hospitalized then, I'm
Oh,
assuming?
for sure,
Yeah.
for sure. And I was standing in front of him. Once again, I mean, I got to tell you, this guide, one of the toughest men I've ever met, he we kind of help him out. He sits down beside the car. I don't even think he realized he'd been shot, but there's just a hole in his shoe.
Yeah.
He takes his shoe off, and I was just like, you kind of have that like reflex laugh. And I said to him, I was like, man, you're either in shock or you're the toughest man I've ever met. Because he was just like, huh.
How devastating was that to the toe? Did it go hydrostatic or did it just
After the video, I'll
punch a
show
hole
you
in his toe?
pictures. He has no big toe now. It was like literally cut off at the base. His big toe just gone. And he's still there every year. Man, but
Jeepers,
once
man.
again, and the guy without his big toe moves in the woods better than anybody you've ever met. He's a machine.
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's wild. Yeah, that's crazy.
How much did the bear hurt him?
Oh, I think the major damage actually came from the toe. As far as lasting damage, right?
Right.
So he managed the bears on top of him, and it didn't get the claws into him and all that.
No, he was hurt for sure. But I'm saying everything else healed, right? It's like,
Okay.
3 years later, the
Yeah.
only real lasting damage
How much
is-
scarring does he have from the bear itself?
Honestly, I've never even thought to ask
Okay.
that.
Yeah, probably best not to.
Yeah.
What's the next hunt you're going on?
We're actually going bear hunting again this fall. But the next really big hunt I'm going on, my son and I do a hunt every year, and this next year we're going to New Zealand. We're going to go red stag hunting.
That's gonna be awesome.
Oh, I can't wait.
Those are the biggest stags in the world, right?
Yeah, these are going to be impressive animals.
That's cool. And it's super beautiful there too.
Yeah.
And my wife's going to go too. I think her and I are going to spend a week just kind of driving around New Zealand, and then we'll spend, some time hunting and then come home.
Awesome.
Should be a lot of fun.
Well, good luck with that one. That'll be super fun.
That's kind of an adventure. You got the Lord of the Rings movie set.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
Yeah, it's super beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for coming for the visit and for coming on the podcast. We really appreciate it. For the listeners out there, obviously everyone listening to this podcast pretty much knows about Silencer Shop, but if for some strange reason you wouldn't, then go to silencershop.com to check them out. They've been in business forever. They sell more silencers than anyone else. And pretty much anything you'd want suppressor-wise is there on their site. And they support thousands of dealers across the nation. So they're well tied into everybody. So appreciate you coming out and really enjoyed having you on the podcast. So
Yeah, thanks
a
for
lot.
having me, guys. This has been great.
All right, thanks. And if you guys listening like this, we appreciate if you'd share it with a friend, subscribe to it, and thank you for visiting and spending time with us on Dwell Time.